there's some truth in that. I have a client, and yesterday we met, and she told me that she is going to leave her job, and she works for a government organization, and I said, why? And well, what is the problem? And she said, I want to work, and there is no work there. She said, I get paid for sitting in my office all day doing nothing.
It's true.
Yeah, and she went to her boss and she said, I need to do something. I need a project, give me something to do. And you know what the boss did? The boss demoted her. The boss moved her down a position because she asked for work. And that's why she's leaving. She's leaving because the boss demoted her because she asked for work.
And how is it in West Europe or in your country? I think whole Earth or every country have bureaucratic.
Yeah, a bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great. You know that word comes from the French language. Yeah, bureau meaning desk.
Desk.
Right?
Oh.
Bureau meaning desk. Yeah. So so bureaucracy means a land of desks.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, definitely true.
Yeah, it is. So okay, the question is, do we have similar problems in Britain? The answer is yes, we do. We have a lot of systems in place, and I don't know where to begin. It's such a big topic. I was listening to a philosophy show on the internet. I will explain it this way, and there was the presenter and the caller. So somebody called in with a question, and they called in and said, this is what we need to do to solve all the problems in the world. This is what we need to do to solve the problems in foreign countries, with immigration, with Iraq, with Afghanistan. This is what we need to do. And the presenter said, number one, I think we should solve the problems at home first. Number two, can you explain to me or give me one example of any problem that government has solved ever? Right? Give me one example of a problem that government has solved. The government took the situation and now the situation is great. And there was silence.
I know one in Slovakia.
Okay. So you can think of one, right? Oh, what is the one? That's interesting. What is the one?
It's the entry of Slovakia to European Union and Army Alliance.
So, yeah, the integration of Slovakia into a larger system. Yeah, I can understand that. One of my frustrations with that is I work with a lot of young people who are very intelligent, and I have worked over time with a lot of young people who are very intelligent. They study legal topics and international relations, and the problem is that they all leave Slovakia to go and work in other European countries. So the intelligent young people leave. They disappear, and what does this leave behind? It just leaves less intelligent people who are not going to be able to solve the problems and who are not going to be good examples. So I've watched this happen over a long period of time, and a part of it is natural, but also part of it is very frustrating. Now, in Britain, we have a very large bureaucracy, a very large bureaucratic system. We also have a history of revolution, which people don't realize and they don't think about. Who was the first and who is the only country to step out of Europe?
Britain.
Britain. The only country, right? And this is a historical position. Who created, funded, and founded the United States of America through the Declaration of Independence? It was British people.
British.
Yeah. George Washington was a British commander. The Declaration of Independence was signed and written by British people, basically English people and Scottish people.
So the idea of globalization and peacemaking, we are thanks to Britain policy, maybe.
Well, I can add two things to that. First of all, the Declaration of Independence was based on two previous documents. The Charter of Freedoms, which was a British document from about 800 years ago, and the other was the Declaration of Arbroath, which is a Scottish document from about 800 years ago. And both of those documents prepared the principles of freedom for modern society. You know, if you have seen the film Braveheart, I don't know, the Mel Gibson film about Scottish history. Okay, so the film is fantasy, but it's based on real events. Yeah, and at the end of the film, there's a Scottish king fighting called Robert the Bruce, and this king wrote the Declaration of Arbroath, which is the principle for a free country. Interesting, it was written by a king, right? That's interesting. And the Charters of Freedom were a group of English lords kidnapped the king, King John of England. Now, people think that the past doesn't affect the present. Well, I can tell you one thing. All of the presidents of the United States are direct relations and descendants of King John. All of them. Yeah, all of them. It's fact, all of them. You can check the information online. All of them are. And so, what did I want to say? Yeah, so the lords kidnapped the king because the king thought he was God, and the lords wanted to change things, and they forced the king to sign a document saying that all men were equal. And this was King John of England, so I have to check the year that King John lived, but let's see, King John of England. It's going to give me the date, hopefully, in a second. 1166 to 1216. So it's about 800 years ago. I was right, 800 years ago. These documents were the principles for freedom and free society. Now, you integrate into that the Christian principles that came later to Britain. Well, Christianity was there, but it was a spoken form of Christianity. The Bible, for example, wasn't there yet in the language that the people could understand. Stories existed, religion existed, but the Bible didn't exist. So when the Bible was finally translated into English, this was King James, and also before that a Bible called the Tyndale version. They brought to people the religious ideas of freedom, as well as the the historical and practical ideas. And all of these things together in Britain created a society that was quite different from the rest of the world. And you've got historical problems there. You've got the Celts being there. You've got the Romans being there. You've got the Knights Templars being there, if you know your religious history. After the French king and the Pope waged war on the Knights Templars moved to Switzerland, Malta, and Scotland, where they rebuilt their culture and their ideas. So there's a historical principle of what I would call Christianity and Christian and practical freedoms that come out of Great Britain, which have kept Britain a free country for a long period of time. It also helps that Britain is an island.
Yes, especially in World War II.
Yeah, exactly.
I think.
Yes, absolutely. That saved Britain, because if if there was if they were connected, the Germans would have just driven their tanks into England, and that would be the end of things. So a little bit of geography and a lot of history has saved Great Britain. And freedoms and the principles of freedoms, if you look around the world, are a British export. Spain did not export freedom to any country, right? France did not export freedom to any country. Who else? Germany did not export freedom to any country. China did not export freedom to any country. Russia did not export freedom to any country.
It's the opposite. They did the opposite.
Yeah, and of course it's not black and white through history. A lot of problems for Russia came from Britain, America, and Germany. They created these problems for Russia to make the political system difficult. But if you look historically, there are very few countries that have exported freedom. Still today, there's a modern principle in philosophy and psychology that the king is not God. This was written by Samuel Rutherford, who was a Scottish Christian Presbyterian Protestant minister about 700 years ago. He wrote a book. And this book is still used today as one of the founding principles of free society. It was written 700 years ago. And there is still today an organization called the Rutherford Institute in the United States, which protects, supposedly, principles of freedom. The idea is no man is above God, no king is above God.
What would you think it's the military activity of United States, Britain sometimes, and from France in the world, especially in the Middle East, is freedom exporting?
No. Freedom is never exported by your military.
But the bomber B-52, it's called Peacemaker.
Yeah, so is the Colt handgun. It's also called the Peacemaker. Let's see. Power comes from weapons only when everybody has one. And I mean that in terms of equality. If everybody has a gun, guns don't have any power.
Mm.
And this is true of everything, right? If everybody has it, it has no value. If everybody has a Ferrari, Ferraris have no value, right? And so, if everybody has a gun, then guns will have no value. There would be no terrorism if everybody had a gun, because terrorists would be stopped before they start.
Yeah.
Now, the trouble is society educated enough to handle its own freedom? That's a very important question. There's only one country in the world that allows all citizens to carry guns. It is the United States of America. That is one of the principles of freedom in the United States of America. Yes, there are something like 3,000 deaths a day in the United States because people are killed by guns. But at the same time, around 7,000 people are saved a day because people have guns. So more people are saved on a daily basis than actually die. So it has more positive effect than negative effect. Cities where there are large amounts of crime, Chicago and New York, are cities where you're not allowed to have a gun. So that's what creates the crime.
There is not, the guns are not allowed in Chicago and New York.
Yeah, in Chicago and New York, private citizens are not allowed to own guns. That is why Chicago is the crime capital of the world. Because all the criminals know that the private citizens don't have guns. And the people in power know this. There are enough psychological and university studies over long periods of time that show that that there is more crime when people cannot defend themselves. And then people say, well, not everyone is responsible enough to own a gun. Yes, that's true. That's why and where education becomes important.
So we under the Army Alliance, we are defended by guns of United States. Not handguns, but
no.
In global view.
in the global view. What stops what stops armies? Guns stop armies. People stop armies. The China wanted to invade the United States during the Second World War, but it couldn't because everybody had a gun in the United States. You couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't.
It's good to hear your opinion with the explain because when you ask someone if you wanted to restrict guns in the United States, I think everyone said yes because guns are not good. But this is great explanation why yes.
Yeah, it's perception. Every time there's a problem with a gun, you hear it on the news. But every time a gun helps somebody, you don't hear it on the news.
And do you think Kim Jong-un have guns? Because he say he has, but independence.
I don't know about that. There's a lot of crazy people. It has a complex history. Why does North Korea have nuclear weapons? North Korea has nuclear weapons because the Democratic Party under Bill Clinton sold North Korea the technology. Yeah. So, we are now at the present dealing with a problem created by the Clinton family cartel about 20 years ago, which threatens the whole world. That's why these people are dangerous. In terms of the military perspective, My information from my study is that the American government is no longer in control of the American military.
Mm-hmm.
The American military is in control of the American military. They do what they want, and nobody can stop them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a danger. George Washington, the first president of the United States, warned that that to enter foreign wars in foreign countries is always a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
This was true 250 years ago, and it is true still today. Nothing has changed. There's a very powerful Machiavellian argument for military force. That is, if we do nothing, then nothing will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's true. I'm not sure that that's a really good argument, to be honest.
I heard something like this, the bad things, generally, are only if the good doesn't do anything.
Yeah. If good people do nothing,
Yes.
then bad will always win. Yes. The trouble is, a lot of people don't know what good is and what bad is.
Yes.
They don't know how to define those things. So, and very often the bad thinks that it is good, and the good thinks that it is bad. In World War II, Hitler was convinced that he was doing the right thing for the world. This was what was needed for the world. He was sure of it. Now maybe, and the problem happens because to have an idea is okay, but when you start to force other people to believe in your ideas, then society becomes very problematic. Humanity, the human situation, changes very slowly, and people live very short lives, and they want to see change in their lifetime. Well, I'm sorry, right? But most people don't really see any change across the whole of their life. When our generation dies, cars will be pretty much the same kind of thing as they are today, right? We're not going to live forever. We're not going to travel through space. We're not going to see, floating city islands in our lifetimes. Maybe future generations will see them. But the problem happens when people say, "I want to change the world, and I want to see the change happening right now." And then the only solution to that is to force people to change, and the only solution to do that is to put a gun to somebody's head. When you do that, you get an instant reaction. But it's always negative in the long term, because, as Jesus said in the Bible, what you do to the smallest of them, you do to me. Right? So some people think that these problems are not going to come back, but they do. It's the horrible history of power and control and violence that exists. The military perspective is interesting. The military, I think the American government lost control of the military sometime after World War II, sometime between 1945 and 1965. I think the last president to control the military was probably John F. Kennedy. And I think after that, the military went what I would call rogue or independent. What's known as the shadow governments, black operations, etc. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing, But here's the problem. Here's the problem. The problem is when you have something that is not transparent. And the classic example of this is the online terrorist group Anonymous, who might be good or might be bad, we don't know, but we don't know who they are. Because they don't have a face, because we don't know who they are, we don't know if they're good, if they're bad, if they change. We don't have any reference point. And if you can't see something, you don't really know it. This was used to control society and history. This was used in ancient Greece. The oracles of ancient Greece were the mysterious voices in the temples that told you what to do. It was just a big curtain and there was a man or a woman, usually a woman, behind it, speaking. You couldn't see her face. And what happened was that, these people lived for hundreds of years. Obviously they didn't. Every 5 or 10 years they just changed the woman behind the curtain. And that's part of what the story in The Wizard of Oz is. That connects to that ancient idea. Anyway, so whenever you can't see what's happening behind the curtain, it's generally not a good thing. Good things are done in light. Bad things are done in darkness. That's the story of history. If you do good things, you want everyone to see them. If you do bad things, you don't want anyone to know about them.
Yeah.
Right?
It's true.
So in terms of the exporting military, I don't. The world has changed. Do you know the organization Greenpeace, the environmental organization, which is not environmental? It's it's a communist arm of the George Soros underground empire, right? It's nothing to do with environmentalism. Greenpeace has more soldiers, more ships, and more weapons than Britain.
Strange.
Yeah, it's Greenpeace is an international for-hire government terrorist organization,
But
with very good marketing.
Yeah. But I'm not looking for what Greenpeace is doing, but I think here in Slovakia we don't hear, I think, anything from Greenpeace.
Yeah, that's because they don't have an interest here at the moment. But who knows in the future? This is the power and influence of large non-governmental organizations. It's clear that the United States military should not be in the foreign countries that it's in. It did not help anyone or anything. I think most people know that. It's a giant industry and it is run by people who have very, very questionable ethics. I'm happy that the army is here to help, but there are rules you have to follow, right? There are rules you have to follow. Your army should never be visible. Your army should never leave your country. Your army should never leave your army base. There are reasons for this. The reasons for this are historically, when your army leaves your country, there's nobody to defend it at home. When your army leave your army base but do not leave your country, this is because they are attacking your country.
Yes.
And these are his
Not
these are
funny.
no exactly these are historical facts. These are historical facts that governments lose power at home because the army goes to foreign countries, and governments lose power at home because the army takes over from the government. And these very large, what are called shadow operations, exist across the world. I don't know if anybody knows the truth about anything that happens. It's so hard to get facts and get information and get details. Yeah, the military question is a very difficult one, and there are things happening all the time that nobody knows about. You know, it was only 10 to 15 years ago that we started to learn what happened in the Cuban Missile Crisis of the 1960s, where we almost destroyed the planet, right? So I don't know. Yes, it's important for people to watch what is happening in government. No, I'm not interested in those topics because I've never met any politician in my life that I could trust. I've never met anyone. Never, ever. And I don't expect to meet anyone.
Do you know the singer Karel Kryl? Do you hear about him?
Brother Close the Gate. That was one of his albums.
Yeah. And he said politicians are here not for trust, but for not control them, but verify them. We have to verify them, not trust them. Politician is not for trust; it's for verifying.
Yeah. Rules are necessary. Rulers are dangerous. So, what made the United States of America the most free country on the world in the world for 200 years? The fact that it had rules but no rulers. There were fundamental principles, the Declaration of Independence and the constitutional amendments, the right to free speech and to carry guns. There was a foundational set of rules, but there were no rulers. So you can have rules without rulers. You can have rules without dictators. Look at a family, for example. Every family has rules. Things that the family agree between themselves are the right thing for the family. And families don't have dictators. But they shouldn't have, in my opinion. You can have a leader, somebody who takes charge for sure. It's probably a natural position to be in. But the family works because you have rules, but that are practical and logical. But you don't have rulers, because the rulers know, because the parents know when the kids grow up. If the parents are not nice to the kids, when the kids grow up, they're gonna hate their parents, right? So the parents.
I read an article or interview with Angela Merkel. It was translated to Slovak from New York Times in Týždeň News.
Yes.
And I don't know, but I think Angela Merkel is one of the politicians who we can trust. I think globally, she has a pressure from many directions, but I think that generally I think she is doing a good work as a politician. I think she's doing the right thing.
Well, I don't know about this. I don't know about the general social policies, but the idea that you can allow foreign people into your country and give them food, accommodation, and other things for free when they don't have skills and they don't have an education qualifications is negative in the long term for intelligent development of society. So, first of all, Angela Merkel may be very intelligent, but that doesn't mean she's good.
Yes. Intelligence she can use against us. I think the more times as in the past we are hearing about solidarity or something like that. There was never talk about solidarity in free worlds, and I don't know how to deal with it globally.
It's interesting, right? When think about it like this: when you say the word chair, I have a picture of a chair in my head. Okay. When you say the word car, I have a picture of a car in my head. When you say the word solidarity, I have no picture of anything in my head. What is that? So, what does that mean? What does it mean? What does it mean politically? What does it mean to you? Because it is something. But to me, when someone says we need more solidarity, it's like blah 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 blah.
I think the solidarity from our view. I have only 6. I was 6 years old when the Iron Curtain fell down, but there were but there was many cases which the people was shooted on the crossing the border to Austria, and when someone did it, the Austrian foreign police, Austrian system don't turn them back, and they take them into their country. So I think from the politician perspective, this can be the solidarity. But only one perspective. And everyone, I don't have opinion how deal with immigrants, but when someone told me say me we don't want immigrants, they have to come back, I every time speak about our case under the Soviet Union. My parents don't want leave country illegally, but I think if there wasn't the chance, if crossing border wasn't deadly, I think my parents want to leave our country. They didn't only because there were guns on borders. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, here's my point. If all of the citizens of Slovakia had guns, the guns on the border,
we can leave.
You can leave.
Great.
The guns on the border would not be a problem.
In
fact, no. Here's the point. If all of the citizens in Slovakia had guns, there would be nobody on the border with guns. Because there would be no reason to be on the border. So nobody would leave because there would be no reason to want to leave. Because there would be nobody keeping you in the prison.
It's good perspective. I think I will adopt it. And I have 2 colleagues, and they have guns. Why, I don't know, but they have guns.
Well, a gun is... okay, do you have a bank account?
Yeah.
Why?
Sure. Oh, because everyone has. No, it's bank
That's
account make your life simpler.
okay. You have a bank account because you know that it's not safe to walk around with all of your money in your pocket,
Yeah.
or to keep it under your bed, or bury it in the garden or something.
I don't I don't like waiting for something like you. So I can't imagine to go to the bank office and standing there
Yeah.
for make a transaction.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, the reason why we have bank accounts is because we know that our money is safe in the
Mm.
banks. We don't expect a problem, but we know that we don't want to have to worry about it, right? There probably will never be a problem, but we play safe anyway. When you leave your home, you lock the door, right? Probably there will not be a problem, but you lock the door just in case, right? Just in case. So, same with your car. You lock your car just in case, right? So, the gun is the similar principle, where you hope that you will never ever need it and you will never ever have to use it. And it also is a symbol of great responsibility. The freedom, all freedom comes from the power of individual people. Like I said, America's freedom comes from individual people having guns. That's a great power. That makes the people the government. Show me one country in history where the government has not tried to rule over the people as a dictatorship. It doesn't exist. It happens to all countries eventually at some point. And at this point, people with guns need to protect themselves. Now, the image we get of guns comes from TV and films, and we have to forget all that. That's all bullshit, right? None of that stuff happens, right? You see those TV shows where the person's saying, "Stop, stop, stop, or I will shoot." That never happens. That never happens because there's a rule with guns. Once the gun is out, you fire. Once the gun is out, you fire, because if you don't, they will. The moment the gun is taken out, that is open season for anyone to do anything. So you never take your gun out and say, "Stop." You take your gun out, you say, "Stop. Stop, 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 stop."
I have a gun.
Yeah. I don't want to do this. I don't want to. But once you take your gun out, you take your gun out for one reason, and one reason only: to fire, to shoot. So this idea that you can point a gun at someone and they will stop that doesn't happen. That doesn't exist, right? That doesn't exist at all. So the image that we get of how guns work or how guns can be used is not real through television and film. And here's another really important point. What about protection in society for the people that society forgets? What about the old? What about the young? What about single women? What about disabled people? These people are potential victims in criminal situations. These are targets for criminal people. How do they protect themselves? everyone knows you can't call the police because the police will come after 10 or 15 minutes and it's probably too late. So these groups in society, the old, the sick, and I think especially young women, need to have some kind of way of protecting themselves, whether it's carrying a can of mace spray or some kind of small gun or maybe a knife of some kind. I'm not sure what the best thing is for them. Maybe at the minimum, if you've got a daughter and she grows up and you want her
I
to
have to have gun.
you want her to carry the little mace spray. Right? If she's going to the town on Friday evening or Saturday evening, she's going out with her friends, 99% of the time there will be no problems. But you want her to have that mace spray in her bag because people get drunk, people get stupid, and not everybody is nice, right? And so it's necessary to protect yourself in a practical, sensible, logical way. So look at the statistics. Do you know what the fourth most violent country in the world is England?
England?
Yeah.
The
fourth most. You are. It's crazy. The fourth most violent country. The amount of local criminal activity in England is so large, and the reason why is that there are laws in Britain that not only can you not carry a gun, you cannot carry a knife.
Knife, yeah, I know.
And so what all the criminals carry guns and knives, and they rule over everybody else because nobody can protect themselves. And the police don't know what to do because it's a small country and everybody's watching everybody, and who knows what the media is going to write about stories, and it's very crazy. And yes, in an intellectual, intelligent society, words and language should be our tools that we use. But before we can use words, we have to know that we're safe to use words. That it's okay for us to use words. And the American First Amendment is free speech. The Second Amendment is the right to carry a gun. And they're joined together. They're connected in a very important way.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that it's something which is not taught, but it's clear down throughout history that power needs the power. If people are going to have power, that power needs to be protected. All power has some kind of protection, and for individuals, that's guns. I know a couple of people who are millionaires and live in Slovakia. They all have guns. They all have guns, no question. They all have guns because they have something to protect. Now, they're not looking for a problem. They don't want a problem. But they know how the world works. They know how the world works. You go somewhere and somebody points a gun at you and you're like, okay, sorry, I'll go away, right? So, there are parts of the world that are very much like that. Large parts of the Ukraine are like that. Large parts of the Middle East are like that. Large parts of areas of China and Russia are part of that. Afghanistan, areas in India, South Africa, Mexico, Venezuela, huge parts of the world are, these are great examples. Venezuela, the citizens can't have guns, so the government is a dictatorship, and now there is no country, basically. Mexico, the citizens can't have guns, so all the cartels have guns, and they rule over everybody. So in an intelligent and forward-thinking society, the right to have access to guns is extremely important. Now, you have to realize that there's going to be problems. There's always going to be problems. Life is dangerous. Everything is dangerous. Cars are dangerous. Light bulbs are dangerous. What else? I don't know. Doing building work is dangerous. Crossing the road is dangerous. So we need, computers can be dangerous. Information can be dangerous. So we need to be sensible and logical about the ideas. So what does that mean? That means training. You can't just give someone, hey, happy birthday, here's happy birthday, here's an AK-47. That's not sensible. That's not intelligent. So I think that anyone who is going to carry a gun should be able to do a course and then have that gun. I don't think there should be any limits. I think everyone should have the right. I don't think there should be any limitation on it. But I do think you need some training. I think that there should be a basic rule that says everyone can have a gun, but you need to do 1 week training course. And let's have that 1 week training course. Let's do it in schools, right? Why not? Why not send all the kids on a 1 week training course? That's what it happened under communism, right?
Yeah.
The civil service. The civil service under communism had gun training, and I think that that's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea to understand the power of the tool.
We can see my colleagues who were on this service can hold a gun at the first sight.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, here's the crazy thing. If you've got a child who's a boy, what does he play with?
Guns, yeah.
So as a child, it's perfectly okay, but as an adult, it's not. Isn't that backwards? I think that's backwards, right? I think it's backwards to give guns to kids as presents or gifts, or they want one. You can get one for them, and they play with them, and then when they become adults, we say, no, you can't do that anymore.
I think 1 month ago, Andrzej Danko told we need rebuild the gun policy in Slovakia, and he is saying the same like you. So he is real thinking about this, and if we adopt this United States policy, I think in the first month, I think there will be a small chaos because the people at first don't know how to use the gun, don't know a law or rules how, and I think there have to be some accidents.
Don't restrict people's access, but make it I don't see the problem with having a 1-week course, right? Do a 1-week course, you can have a gun, right? That's it. But you have to do the 1-week course. I think the idea of the problem is with regulation and governments, the 1-week course becomes a 2-week course. The 2-week course becomes a month course. The month course gets divided into different levels for different groups of people, and then it becomes more expensive. And then, see, that's the trouble with the regulation and the rules and the laws over time. So there is this fear that you begin by saying, okay, these type of guns are okay and these type of guns are not okay. And then over time, more and more guns become not okay. And so there's a big fear that if you begin to regulate, then the regulations will never end. Tax never goes down; it always goes up, right? And so there's a fear there that if you begin with regulation, then, so logically for me, if you do it the same way as driving a car, right? You don't just give someone the car key. Here's, oh, you're 17. Here's the car keys. Here's a car. Bye-bye. We don't do that, do we? I mean, because we know that the person needs to have, 8 or 10 lessons, and then they can have a car. They can drive the car. They have a test. They pass the test. They drive the car, and everybody goes through that experience, and it works. And so why don't we have the same thing for guns? You don't limit it so people can't. You don't tell people what kind of car to buy, right? You have one license for basically all cars. It's different if it's a big truck or lorry or whatever, right? But you basically have one license for all types of cars. You get one license for all these different kinds of guns that you can buy. Do a 1-week course. Anyone can do it. Anyone can pay for it. Make it cheap. Make it affordable, and then you can do that. I don't see the problem with that if people want to do it. Make it easy. Make it accessible, and then you build an industry. You build an industry around that as well. But it shows a certain level of, sometimes people fear that, if there's a shop selling guns, people will go in and buy a gun and go and shoot somebody, and that tells you a lot about the world, right? Yeah, I mean, if the world is that bad, then there's a lot of things we need to do to work on making it better. And I don't know what the solution is at the end of the day. The idea that you can just walk into a shop and buy a gun and you don't need a license. Wow. You're going to have a lot of people not ready.
Yes, it is this I wanted to say. Yeah, many people are not ready.
You're going to have a lot of people not ready. You're going to have you're going to have people shooting themselves because they don't know how to operate and use the guns. So, when you become a soldier in the army, they don't just say, "Okay, here's your gun." Off you go. When you become a policeman, they don't just say, "Here's the gun." They train you to use it. They give you constant training on how to use it as well. So I think that that some control is necessary. There's also this idea about registration of guns, which again is it's potentially another problem. If the government knows where all the guns are, then they can come and take them. So it's a difficult balance. I'm not against the American system. I very much support the American system. I don't think the American system would work in a place like Brezno, right?
Yes.
I just don't think it would. I mean, the gypsies would have guns. Can you imagine the gypsies with guns? Can you imagine? The kids would be just, it would be like the Wild West, right? They'd just be walking around shooting at everyone and everything.
But the process to get gun now is very, it's not simple, and every time you have to bribe someone.
Yeah, that's the problem with the regulation, is that the idea is great. Like all the ideas I've suggested are good ideas, but they would be good ideas in a perfect world. And we don't live in a perfect world, so we can't expect that that regulation is going to be okay. And at the end of the day, you have to trust people, because if there's no trust, there's nothing. You have to trust that people are going to do good things and people are going to do the right things. If not, there's no reason for anything. There's no reason for schools, there's no reason for banks, there's no reason for organizations, there's no reason for businesses. You have to trust that people are going to do the right thing. And so, you know, there are many other elements as well. You know, it's crazy that students in school spend a lot of time studying biology, but no time understanding how to protect biology.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah, so you and I'm very happy that I live in the Western world where I have all these opportunities, but and I know that the whole world is different. Different countries need different rules. So I think you have to, at some point, you have to make that jump of trust and say, okay, let's try it. Let's see what happens. You've got to do that with people around about you. You've got to do that with, as parents, with children. When the children grow up, one day you have to go, okay, it's not my responsibility anymore, right?
Yes.
Yeah, your kids go away to school, or they go away to a camp, or they join a club, or whatever. Then it's not my responsibility anymore. So you have to trust that the world is going to be okay, and that everyone is going to do the right thing. And if you can't trust people, then we don't have much of a future. And gun control is an issue of trust. Do we trust the world? Do we trust the people around about us enough that we think they will do the right thing? And way back in 1776, the United States trusted its population, and it built a country based on those principles of trust. Now, as we begin to question the trust, the freedoms disappear, and so it's a hard balance. So, yes, Switzerland's a great example. Switzerland, the government in Switzerland gives guns and bullets to all of its citizens.
Government.
Yeah, the government gives guns and bullets to all of its citizens. Where's the problem in Switzerland? But there isn't one, because everyone has training, everyone is responsible, and people say, oh, well, that's Switzerland. Yes, but you can't be Switzerland because you don't have those...
only people, about people.
Yeah. Oh, that's Switzerland. It's different there. Yeah, because the rules are different. Slovakia will never be Switzerland if you have different rules. It won't. You have to trust people that they're going to do the right thing. There will be accidents. There will be problems. That's the way it is. How many people die from pharmaceutical drugs every year? The doctors give drugs to the patients and they die. Sorry, right? So shit happens, right? So there's in every situation there's the yin and the yang, the positive and the negative. There's the loss and the gain. And you have to look at is it more positive than negative? If it's more positive than negative, we do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's more negative than positive, we don't do it. And some people take the negative and they focus on negative. Yes, but there's negative in everything. Don't worry about it because there's negative in everything.
Mm-hmm.
More of this is less of this.
Yes.
More time on this project is less time on this project. Yeah, more production of this product is less production of this product.
Mm-hmm.
If you focus on the less and the loss all the time, of course it's going to look negative. But you have to look at the long-term picture, which is the moment there's a problem anywhere, what do? We call people with guns.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. I will call my colleague. You have a gun. Come here.
Yeah, we call people with guns. Or why do we call the police? Because they have guns. We don't call them because they're the most intelligent people. I'm sorry, because they're not. Because if they were the most intelligent people, they'd be philosophers, not policemen, right? So we call the police because the police have guns. We ask the army for help because the army have guns and tanks and planes and warships and I don't know what else they've got. So there's this habit that guns provide security. We call people with guns to help us. So we call people with guns. We call people we don't know with guns to help us. But we don't even trust ourselves to have a gun. And trusting someone you don't know is even more stupid than building your own self-belief enough to have that. And I think it's something that could be done in schools to show people or to teach people about a level of responsibility. Hey, when I was at school, in our sports class, you know what we had? We had archery.
Yeah.
We had archery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, what is archery? Archery is what they did before they had guns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before they had guns, they had bows and arrows. And we did that in PE class.
Mm-hmm.
And, what is the origin of archery? It is killing people.
Yes.
And that was part of school. So if you can do archery, why can't,
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about, let's study biology and chemistry so we can do medicine and save lives. You can save lives by learning how to use guns properly as well. It's just another way to do it.
It's interesting view. I never thinking about it like this.
Well, there's a man called John Lott who has done studies on crime, and he has presentations on YouTube. And basically, where there's less guns, there's more crime.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes through country by country around the world and state by state through the United States in his presentation, and he shows statistically just numbers, not rules, laws, not philosophy, not sociology. He just says these are the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Less guns, more crime. He goes through every country in the world. He goes through every state in the United States and shows the statistics. Always exactly the same. In areas where you have less guns, you have more crime.
Mm-hmm.
In
England, there are knives not allowed. Why? Because I don't know. I think the attack with knife is more dangerous, like with gun, because knife. I think knife can hurt, but the gun he can miss. but with knife.
Well, you know where, like, you know, the judo and kung fu and karate and all these martial arts. You know where they come from? They all come from China, right? Originally. You know why? You know why?
Because they are not allowed to carry a weapon.
Then they were not allowed to carry knives. The government even made a rule that farmers were not allowed to have tools. You couldn't have a spade for digging. Farmers were not allowed to have tools because they could use the tools to defend themselves. Nothing with an end or a blade on it was allowed. And that's where all the martial arts came from. All the martial arts came because the citizens had to defend themselves somehow. They were not allowed knives. They were not allowed anything. Nothing metal. They were not allowed to own anything metal. And so to defend themselves, they had to develop all these martial arts. That's where they all come from. The fact the government made a law that said you cannot defend yourself. You cannot use these tools to defend yourself, and took them all away from people. So what the British government is doing is basically doing what the Chinese government did about 500 years ago. They're just taking everything away from the people piece by piece. And it doesn't have a good end. It doesn't have a good end.
My colleague had a problem with knife in England. He doesn't know about it, and he was caught by policemen. But
what was he doing that he was caught by a policeman?
He was walking.
That's not a crime.
And there was there is no, but I don't know. I think he looks like a tourist, and I think the policeman know or predict he doesn't know about a rule. Don't carry and he asked him direct question. Do you have a knife? But there was no the first question but he asked them, and he said yes, and the policeman take the knife from him. And there was and there were the case when I first heard about this, and it was 5 years ago, I think, 4 or 5.
Yeah, I had a friend who lived in London, and his job was a carpenter. He worked with wood, and you know, what does a carpenter need? He needs knives for cutting and working. And so he was going to work, and the police stopped him. And he had all these knives on him.
It's fun. And my colleagues did a joke to another colleague, and they put him into a bag, the kitchen knife, long kitchen knife, and it was few hours before flight from Vienna.
Oh my God.